Some stories don't begin in boardrooms or in quiet homes. They begin in the storm, where people are stripped of their masks. That's where a single dad's daughter met a broken CEO and saw through everything the world had misunderstood about him. The storm. Rain hammered against the city streets, relentless and cold. Umbrellas flipped inside out, cars splashed through puddles, and people rushed for cover. Daniel Carter, a single dad, tugged his daughter's hand tightly as they hurried home from the library. Sophie, only 8, held her small umbrella bravely over her head, though it did little against the sheets of rain. They were about to cross the street when Sophie froze. "Daddy, look!" On the corner, beneath the flickering neon sign of a closed cafe, sat a man in a soaked three-piece suit. His tie hung loose, his briefcase lay forgotten in the mud, and his hair clung to his forehead. He didn't move, just sat there, drenched, staring blankly at the ground. Daniel frowned. He recognized that face. Everyone did. It was Victor Hale, the CEO whose name had dominated business headlines for years. The man who was once hailed as untouchable, ruthless, brilliant. But here he was, broken, silent, and alone in the rain. "Daddy, he looks sad," Sophie whispered, her small voice trembling. Daniel hesitated. Victor Hale wasn't just anybody. He was the man the world painted as cold, greedy, untouchable. But looking at him now, Daniel saw something different. Emptiness. "We should go home," Daniel murmured. But Sophie pulled his hand, firm. "No, he needs help." The first step of kindness. Before Daniel could stop her, Sophie walked over, her tiny boots splashing in puddles. She tilted her umbrella to cover part of Victor's shoulder. "Sir, you'll get sick sitting here," she said gently. Victor blinked, as though waking from a trance. His eyes, once sharp enough to make executives tremble, were bloodshot and hollow. He looked at Sophie with confusion. "You shouldn't stop for strangers," he rasped, his voice hoarse. Daniel quickly joined, shielding Sophie protectively. "She's right, though. You'll catch your death sitting in this storm." For a long moment, Victor said nothing. Then, slowly, he whispered, "Let it." Those 2 words pierced Daniel's chest. This wasn't just a man caught in the rain. This was a man who had lost his will. Sophie, unshaken, crouched beside him. She reached into her small backpack and pulled out the sandwich she hadn't eaten earlier. "Here. My mommy used to say food helps when you're sad." Victor's hand trembled as he accepted it. He stared at the small sandwich like it was the first kindness he'd been shown in years. The man behind the mask. Daniel crouched too, his voice lower now. "Victor Hale, I've read about you. But you're not the man they write about, are you?" Victor let out a bitter laugh that quickly turned into a cough. "The man they write about is dead. Maybe that's for the best." Sophie shook her head, droplets falling from her hair. "My mommy's dead. But Daddy says that doesn't mean we stop. You just keep walking, even when it rains." Victor looked at her, startled. In her young eyes, he saw something he hadn't seen in years. Innocence unclouded by judgment. "Your mom, she was lost too?" Victor asked softly. Sophie nodded. "But she's still part of me. Daddy says love doesn't go away, even if people do." Tears pricked Victor's eyes. He had lost his wife years ago, burying himself in work to drown out the grief. But tonight, in the rain, with this little girl's words, the walls cracked. The choice to care. Daniel extended a hand. "Come on. We live close by. Dry off, at least." Victor hesitated. For a man who once dined in skyscrapers and traveled in private jets, stepping into a stranger's modest apartment should have felt beneath him. But at that moment, pride was a luxury he no longer carried. He took Daniel's hand. And with that, kindness opened the first door. Kindness brings people in from the storm, but true help teaches them how to walk again. For Victor Hale, the broken CEO, help came not from boardrooms or wealth, but from a single dad and his little girl who refused to see him as anything less than human. A home different from his own. Victor sat in Daniel's small living room, wrapped in an old towel. Sophie placed a mug of hot cocoa in front of him, her smile bright despite the rain still dripping from her hair. "Here, Daddy makes the best cocoa. It fixes everything," she announced proudly. Victor stared at the chipped mug. In his world, everything had always been fine china and crystal glasses. But as he took a sip, warmth spread through him. Not from the drink, but from the simplicity of being cared for without agenda. Daniel sat across from him. "You don't owe us explanations. But if you want to talk, we'll listen." For a moment, Victor said nothing. Then, slowly, he confessed. "I built everything, but I lost everything that mattered. My wife died. I kept working to fill the hole. The money came, the power came, but it was never enough. And one day, I looked in the mirror and didn't know who I was anymore." His voice cracked. Sophie, with all the innocence of a child, patted his hand. "It's okay. Daddy says broken things can still be fixed." Victor's shoulders shook. A man who once made empires bow was undone by the kindness of a child. Learning help, not pity. In the days that followed, Victor kept coming back. Daniel worried at first. After all, what could a billionaire CEO need from a single dad and his daughter? But Victor didn't come for wealth or power. He came for normalcy. He helped Sophie with her school project, sitting cross-legged on the floor cutting cardboard and laughing when the glue stuck to his fingers. He helped Daniel repair a leaky faucet, fumbling with the wrench but determined to learn. And when bills piled up on Daniel's counter, Victor discreetly slipped money into an envelope. Not out of pity, but out of gratitude. "Let me help carry some of your load," he told Daniel. "You've carried mine without asking." For Daniel, accepting help was as hard as offering it had been for Victor. But slowly he realized, help isn't weakness. It's love in action. The transformation begins. One evening, Sophie looked at Victor as they walked home from the park. "You smile more now," she said simply. Victor chuckled. "Do I?" She nodded. "When we first met, you looked like the rain was inside you. Now you look like the sun's trying to get out." Those words stayed with him. Victor began to rebuild not his empire but himself. He took a step back from his company, delegating power to others. He started therapy, facing grief he had buried for too long. And in Daniel and Sophie, he found not replacements for what he lost, but a reminder of what was still possible. Family, love, connection. The daughter who saw his value. Months later, as Victor sat at Sophie's school play, surrounded by folding chairs and buzzing parents, he realized something extraordinary. He wasn't the broken man in the rain anymore. When Sophie spotted him in the audience, she waved with pure joy. "That's my friend Victor," she shouted proudly. Gasps rippled, parents recognizing the CEO among them. But Sophie didn't care who he was to the world. To her, he wasn't a billionaire or a headline. He was the man who had accepted cocoa in a chipped mug, who glued cardboard with her, who smiled again because someone had seen his heart. And in that moment, Victor realized his true value was never in his fortune. It was in the love he had to give and the courage to receive it.